Yep. It's 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order.
We could have everybody just for a minute, just take a moment of silence and remember Faye Swofford. Faye, longtime employee of the school district, the cafeteria. Her husband Rala, obviously long-time bus driver. Just her family, very involved in our district and our community. And I just think to pay her tribute, just everybody just take a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. We will be as a district when we find out, and I don't know the services at this point. We will let everybody know when we find out. Do you know?
Saturday at 4.
Saturday at 4.
Visitation is tomorrow night.
At Clinkenbeard's.
Clinkenbeard's.
Thank you. We're at 6.
I think it's at 6 to 7.
6 to 7. I hadn't heard today, so thank you. Appreciate that. Do we know, are they still going on with Saturday?
Yep.
Saturday night? Yeah. Okay. They had a benefit Saturday night for it, so. Okay. If you'll please rise. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, need a motion to approve the consent agenda items, which includes the meeting agenda, the August financial fund balance statement, minutes of the August 15th regular and tax rate hearing meetings, and the September 11th special meeting and payment of monthly bills, and will exclude payments to Impression Floral and More and Jeff Ellison. Also the updated substitute teacher list. Does anyone want to make that motion? Mark makes the motion, Kenny seconds. All in favor? Carries 7-0. Next, need a motion to approve payments to Impression Floral and More and Jeff Ellison. Michael makes the motion. I have a second. Mark seconds. All those in favor? Carries 5-0 with 2 abstentions, Stanifer and Ellison. Next, we'll go into MSBA monthly board report.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of September. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the report issued by the Governor's School Safety Task Force. That task force was established in March and held a series of public outreach sessions around the state during the past few months. It received additional input from surveys, website comments, and a student input session. It also relied on resources available through MSBA's Center for Education Safety. The group issued its final report on July 31st. The task force concluded that schools are overwhelmingly safe places for children to learn and grow, but also identified some areas where safety can be improved for students and school staff. MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall was a member of the task force, and she says communication is a strong theme in the report.
We are looking at ways that we can improve communication between agencies, whether it's state to local or within our communities, how we can do a better job of communicating information that would ensure our children's safety. And so we have some recommendations in the report about best practices on how to get information distributed and who needs to be, who needs to be receiving that information and how you process it.
Randall says one thing the report does not recommend is arming teachers.
What it does say is that if communities want access to school resource officers or school protection officers, we need to do a better job in giving them access to that. That needs to be a school and community decision, but we do think it's the best practice to have access to a trained, highly skilled school resource officer or a school protection officer. Our preference would be school resource officer, but obviously some communities don't have the resources to provide that. So a highly trained school protection officer would be an alternative to that, but we do not think it is best practice to go beyond school resource officer, school protection officer in terms of armed individuals in our buildings.
The report says there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to making schools as safe as possible, but says the best solutions to address school safety are at the local, community, and individual school level. The full task force report is posted on the MSBA website. Speaking of school safety, there's a new 24-hour, 7-day-a-week school safety tip line available to report potential school safety threats. It's called Courage to Report and is operated by the Missouri Information Analysis Center within the State Highway Patrol. The goal is to help school officials and law enforcement learn about potential school threats as soon as possible so they can determine how to appropriately handle the report. The toll-free number for Courage to Report is 866-748-7047. A number of new state laws became effective at the end of August, as is usually the case after a legislative session adjourns in May, and this year was no exception. That means MSBA's policy department has been busy analyzing those laws to determine if school district policy changes are needed. MSBA Associate Executive Director Kelly Hopkins oversees MSBA's policy department, and she says it's critical that school district policies keep current with state law, government regulations, and court decisions. But at the same time, she says, school boards have flexibility on many policy issues and often can determine what policies best meet the needs of their schools and community.
Districts have local control over their policies, and so it needs to reflect what the district is actually doing or what they believe is correct. For whatever reason, it's their policy. We want to keep them from doing anything that isn't consistent with law, and so we will push back against changes that are made that are not consistent with law. But unless they're not consistent with law, if district wants language, we put it in there, and then we maintain it so it doesn't go away the next time policy update is published.
Hopkins says it's important in some cases that school district policies include references to state law.
Occasionally a district will say the policies are so detailed, and sometimes I would agree with that, but if we didn't include that detail, it might mean that the district is spending a lot of time on the phone with an attorney and trying to understand the law that we were explaining in the policy. Now, if it's our attorney, that's fine, because that's not going to cost them anything. But if it's their district attorney, that could get expensive. So sometimes we do go a little bit over in the explanation of how to implement particular law.
All MSBA member districts receive regular policy updates as part of membership. Some 240 school districts participate in MSBA's full maintenance policy service that allows MSBA to update and customize policies for school districts. MSBA's policy department is working on some updates and revisions to the service that will be announced in the coming months. The 2019 MSBA Annual Conference will be held at the end of this month at the Lake of the Ozarks. Once again this year, we have some outstanding general session speakers, along with some 130 concurrent sessions on a wide range of topics designed to help board members and administrators improve their leadership skills. We hope to see you there. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
I'm going to spotlight some programs, but I'm going to wait to do it in my report, so we're going to see if that portion.
First, we'll have Dr. Hall on the treatment school.
Okay. So we've started some family involvement activities. Last Friday we had Grandparents' Day and kindergarten breakfast. So kindergarten grandparents came in, had breakfast, had the opportunity to see our book fair for the first time. Tomorrow we will have Apple Fest for first graders, so parents can come in and go through those stations with their child, whether it's reading or poetry or math games, with lots of different activities for parents to learn with their children.
Okay, I have to make a comment.
Yeah.
I love your videos
Thank you.
on Facebook. Have you seen them? They are fabulous.
So you have to tell them how that happens, Dr. Alton.
We encourage students to use their resources, so I use mine, my wife films the videos, and my brother edits them and puts them together. That's
You're the
what I do.
director.
I'm the idea man, yeah.
You're the director.
The one with the apples, oh my God, how cute is that? I just wanted to make that comment. If you haven't seen them, they're fabulous.
You, just before it gets away, so, and Mrs. Swadish isn't here, but she has done a really better job than Mr. Dalton and I did last year of getting social media out there, helping us get social media out there. Obviously, she's been really busy working with teachers and new teachers, and we'll talk about that at some point. We're going to have her give a report to you all about what she does. But we have she's kind of a social media, she knows how to do that stuff, and I've sent her lots of stuff that she's put out there for us. So I appreciate that because I'm not very good at it, wouldn't do it.
His deal is awesome.
Did you post that on Facebook yourself?
Is that on the school?
That's dope.
Yeah.
It's in the Ava school thing. It's really cute. No, it's cute.
Middle school principal, Mrs. Nelson.
Well, first I'd like to recognize Mrs. Mindy Pickney. She is the one that displayed all of our middle school students' art. If you hadn't had a chance, please check it out. She also has it displayed up and down the hallways in our building, so they've been working hard. We had our back to school swim party, which I know it's hard to believe. It was cold then, it's been hot now. We had well over 100 students through 8 that attended that, so we're proud of that. As far as academic-wise, our teachers have been meeting in PLC teams, and they are using their benchmark and map data to develop focused interventions to teach the students during the break time.
Thank you. High school principal, Dr. Nash.
I'd like to thank the FFA for decorating the boardroom tonight. If you'll look down there in front of you, we have some of the mums that they grew in the greenhouse. Those are still on sale for $10 a piece, so if anyone is interested, just call the high school office and we can get you set up. Also, this week, progress reports went out for students at the high school level. We are going to start our draft program, which is developing relationships and focused teaching. It's our intervention program that will start on Monday. So our teachers drafted students that they felt like they could help the most. If they had an F in their class or needed to be taught mini lessons or some of the skills that they were lacking, then that's what we'll be doing during intervention time, and that starts on Monday.
Thank you. Special Services Director, Mrs. Swofford.
I want to thank our speech and language department. We've been working with them to develop some new referral process and some guidelines for interventions. We have some new eligibility criteria that came from the state this year. It started July 1st, so we are working with them. Our speech pathologist, Mr. McCool, has been working really hard to develop that so we can get that out to teachers and get that process started.
Thank you. Mr.
We are finishing our roofing project. It is the elementary 4th grade roof. They're finishing the metal on it today and tomorrow. Hopefully they'll be done by tomorrow afternoon. They did the rubber part of it that smelled bad. They did that before school started. So this is just soft and good. Other than that, their custodians and custodial staff are looking at some different ways to take care of our floors, and Monty's working with them to see if we can shift some responsibilities, making sure that we're staffed appropriately, and maybe come up with a new program to keep our floors in shape.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and do the executive reports, Dr. Dodd.
Okay, so real quick, our nursing staff doing a great job, but they're getting ready to set up employee flu shots clinics, and we are looking at doing student flu shot clinics. We've never done that before. We don't know what grade, probably more towards the upper grade levels. Not sure we want to be giving shots to elementary kids. just because of how they react, but we are setting up our employee flu shot clinics, and then we're looking at doing some we'll gauge interest of parents to see if they have interest in flu shots for their child. But, all right, so a couple different things. We're going to talk a little bit about enrollment. We talked about enrollment in August, and I told you it looked like we were up. We are still up. I told you we'd settle down. So we are 60 pre-K kids at this point, which is great. That is max capacity. As you remember, we've gone from 51 to 56, and now we're at 60 over the last 3 years. We're going to look to expand that a little bit more next year. So we want to be able to have seats for everybody that wants to send their child to preschool. Right now, we're still having to turn people away. Dr. Hall, do you have any idea how many we turned away off the top of your head? I'm thinking 10 or 12, but I don't know that for a fact.
Close.
Okay. Elementary is up. Dr. Hall's the big winner. He's up 12 students this year over last year at this time. He has 463 kids, K through 4. The middle school is down a little bit. We're down 8 students at the middle school at 416, and we're down 3 students at the high school at 429. Total enrollment K-12 of 1308. Pre-K through 12, they're at 1,368, which is up 5 students from a year ago. So, good news. Slow, steady growth, and that's kind of what we've been. We were up 15 last year, up 5 this year, 15, 20. You know, we can handle that. When you start looking at the 50 or 100 numbers, that starts to be a little bit of a struggle if we miss it by that much. Okay, so we have some financial information. If you want to bring that up. So you guys have seen the spreadsheet. I didn't show it to you last month because it was still pretty new. We didn't have a whole lot of new information. There we go. You just have to go find it.
Who's moving on?
Yeah. So if you look at the very top line, number 2, we have weighted ADA. So line 2D. So weighted ADA is, it jumped a bunch from July and August. If you see that number, it's because now we have summer school added into it. Summer school is not added in July and August because BJ doesn't turn into summer school numbers until August, so it can't be included until September. Correct?
Correct.
All right. So our state adequacy target, we talk about the state adequacy target all the time. That's the number, that's the calculation that the state does of what it takes to educate a child in the state of Missouri. So we budgeted 6308. We are currently at 6316. So climbing a little bit. Good, that's good. That means the state, through the formula, is obligated to pay AVA $8,835,360.27. But you have to take off the local effort. So our local tax revenue will be $3,062,237. Means the state owes us $5,773,122.44. Our classroom trust fund, that's the insurance tax on corporate insurance. Prop C dollars, that's the 1% sales tax, down a little bit, and September's down. That's July. That would be July receipts that we would receive in September, and transportation is staying solid. So, the question you're asking is, why does the red $313,000 appear in red? It appears in red because we're up. I do it opposite. Some people do it in blue, I do it red. Catches my attention that way. So that is $313,000 over budget at this point. We haven't received that. That's the projected to receive, $313,000 over budget. But if you remember, in June we passed a $414,000 deficit budget. So we still have a $100,000 spread to make up, which we talked about in June. I told you that I thought would happen. I would estimate revenues low, expenditures high. I thought we would come in at a net zero. As we've done the last 3 years, we're still on track to do that. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay, so let's talk about moving forward. So last Thursday, I was at a meeting at the Commissioner's Advisory Council. So meeting with the commissioner and her deputies, and we were talking about the budget request to the legislature from DESE. And DESE makes the request for formula dollars, transportation dollars, all of that. So they have run the calculation for the state adequacy target for the next 2 years by statute. It's figured by statute. It is not moving. So it is going to be the same for the 1920, 2021, and 21-22. So it's not going to change. So that means there's going to be less of a call or a request to fulfill the formula. That number, DESE is requesting $10 million. That's going to be $10 million call for formula dollars. It's $1.5 million for weighted ADA, and then $8.5 million to make up for the subsidizing lost revenue. There's a financial institution tax that takes effect January 1st. So we've got to make up the loss of that revenue. So they're asking for $10 million to fulfill the formula for next year. But that's a pretty low ask for DESE. It's usually $75–85 million. So that's the conversation we were having, is where do we go? Because the legislature's obviously used to us asking for $65–75 million. We're only going to be asking for 10. We're going to attack transportation dollars is the request. So we're going to DESE is going to ask for $55–65 million a year for the next 3 years to bring the transportation reimbursement back up to where it's supposed to be. We will see where that goes. We won't know that until about May 15th. There will be a fiscal note on that, but that's going to be the request for next year. So, anyway. All right, talked about that. Another thing that's going to help us a little bit, when the state adequacy target doesn't move and we only are increasing kids by 2 to 3, 5 kids a year, that is not a huge revenue increase. But we've talked about, in that weighted ADA calculation, we've talked about thresholds for free and reduced lunch students, and we've talked about thresholds for special education students. We get to count them more than a 1, so Michael's worth 1. But if I'm a special education student, I'm worth a 1.25. And if Bart is a free and reduced lunch student, he's maybe worth a 1.30 when you start adding that up. So we actually, our weighted ADA is higher than our actual membership, if you've noticed that. So those thresholds are dropping. So the free and reduced lunch threshold is currently 34%. So if you can't count the first 34% of your population, they take 34% of your membership. So, and they take that, whatever that number is, that amount of special ed kids can't count towards extra weighted ADA, but anything above that can count towards a bonus ADA. Do the same thing with special education, and that's at 12.83. So it's a 12.83 and 29.45 for next year. Both of those are dropping about 4%. So that's going to help our weighted ADA. It's going to help increase our weighted ADA. So that's a good thing. That's where we'll see some additional revenue. We probably will not see it through straight ADA. The other issue you all know about, we had a ransomware attack at 3 a.m. on September 12th. We were notified early that morning, Mr. Deana and I, by JMark, our network service provider. They did an outstanding job of containing the issue. We don't store a lot of data on site, but we do store some data on site. All of our student identifiable data is stored off-site, on off-site servers through our student information system, Tyler Technologies. Our financial data is stored on-site in a server, but it is encrypted in that server. So the program we have encrypts it, so they can't break that encryption. They can encrypt it further, but where we can't get it, but they can't break the encryption that we already have on it. They did a good job. They got the network shut down. We notified everybody. We notified our insurance carrier because we do have cyber insurance, which will help us pay for this expense. So by Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon, we had our financial server. We had backups. So we had backups in three different places. We had backup. Monica had backups with her at home. We had backups two backups in St. Louis, and we had a backup in Springfield, and a backup here. So I guess we had 4 or 5 backups. But we were able to restore that data. They rebuilt the server, restored the data, and Monica was back on Saturday afternoon because payroll goes out tomorrow morning. So it's pretty important. Payroll had to be sent by 10 o'clock on Wednesday in order for the bank to process it and to be in everybody's account. BJ had to do bills. I notified you the bills were going to be ready for your review. BJ got on Tuesday morning, worked extra hours and got bills up. All of our teachers are back on. We're not completely 100%, but I would guess we are 75 to 80% at capacity on our network at this time. So what does all that mean? So we have cyber insurance, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we have cyber insurance through Missouri Public Risk, who is our insurance agent. Our insurance provider. Tim Connell's our agent. Midwest Public Risk is the provider. They contract with a company called Beasley for cyber protection. So we have a policy through Beasley. So when it all comes down to it, we're going to be out $5,000. It may be a $40,000 fix by the time we're all said and done. But the insurance companies will be paying. We're going to be out $5,000. But we've been on the phone all week because all of these companies that you are working with to work on this have attorneys. And one set of attorneys is in New York and the other set of attorneys is in San Francisco. And these companies one's in Pennsylvania and I think I finally have a handle on who everybody is at this point. But it's been an interesting deal. Not ever want to go through it again. J. Mark has been really good, standing beside us, helping explain to these people what actually happened. They actually contained it. It's actually a new virus. It was first seen 20 days ago, or new ransomware. It was first seen 20 days ago. So it's interesting. So we have obligation to report, and we've done that. We have obligation to notify. We've done that, but we don't believe any identifiable data was breached at all. So, any questions I can answer about that? Okay. Is that all I have? That's all I have. Mr. Dahl.
Touch a little bit on, we talked earlier about our fall PD day. We did have several schools here on site. We had Todd Whitaker, what did we say, 50-some books, and was nationally known educational speaker. Feedback has been positive on that. We had to turn away hundreds of people just there were capacity among the whole of the Performing Arts Center. So really felt like that was a productive day. Teachers, again, feedback's been that they enjoyed that. We'll touch on at this point, we've got 48 students doing A+ tutoring, which that's good. Typically, students do that either their junior or senior year. If you're wondering, hey, why is it that more? We've got about 100 kids in class. What happens if students do it as a junior? They typically don't follow up and do those hours again as seniors. We have some that will. The hope is we get to the end of the year, I'm telling you that the vast majority of our graduating class is qualified for A+. That's the goal. I wanted to kind of update you on that. The other thing, kind of related to our PD days, our calendar changed last year. We have, I say historically, for as long as I've been here, Ava has always done a big PD day in the fall and the spring where we're trying to bring presenters in, those kinds of things. We went to multiple full day PD days in addition to that. And what we do is, it's time for our teachers to work in teams. And I know I've said that a lot. I don't think I've ever really tried to show you just part of what that looks like for our teachers sometimes. Dr. Val made me promise not to, I could go all day talking about this kid that
If you like a spreadsheet, here's your guy.
I'm just
You're just giving them a preview.
just a preview. So, and partly, we talked about our state data, and again, it has not been released, which kind of anticipated, so, you know, once we get that, it's been publicly released, we'll go through that information, but really, what to describe this to you, I always say this, we don't want the tests to be the only thing we talk about, because it's not the be-all, end-all. It'd be insincere to say it's not important, because in the state of Missouri, you know, those are the rules of the game. That's how schools are evaluated. That's a piece of that puzzle. The other thing we talk about with teachers, it gives us an opportunity to compare to a larger group of students and see how our students are performing. You know, when we say we've got 100 students at a grade level, not that that's a small group, but at least one time a year we get to compare to 70,000 students at the grade level and see how our students are performing relative to those kids on similar assessments. So this is the broad view, what we try to look at. You know, you could have a year where in a particular classroom, these scores were low. What we talk about with our principals and teachers, we're looking for a pattern. You know, you could have an outlier year, and then we try to figure out what happened still. But this is an example. This is what you see in blue. Those are AVA students. In red, you see the state average. Well, that's tracking a particular class in their math tests, what that looks like. And we're just looking for a trend. The other one that I have pulled up here was at a particular grade level. Again, you know what you see here in blue, those are our students. In red, that's a state average. You know, we have one year where there was a dip, and we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what happened, but that's not a trend for that particular area. What we use that for, and again, that's a broad view, we use that to analyze our curriculum. Hey, are we aligned to what the skills are we want our students to master? Do we need to review the strategies we're using? You know, again, you know, we saw a pattern where our kids just aren't performing to the level we would like for them to. So that's just kind of a broad view. Now from there, and I said I'll cut that off, and next time we'll talk more about that possibly. You know, we look at those patterns overall, and then we do get more specific in a given year. All right, specific skills. You know, we have an opportunity to look at that and see, you know, if I've got a kiddo, Johnny struggled on this particular assessment, what specifically did he struggle on? And you heard, I think Mrs. Nelson and Dr. Nash specifically talk about intervention. When you hear us talk about bear time intervention, you know, that time is intended. If we've got one of our students that's struggling in an area, that's extra time where our teachers are working with them, trying to help them fill those gaps. You know, we spend a lot of time with teachers identifying essential elements, is what we talk about. Essential skills our kiddos have to have when they go from 3rd grade to 4th grade, from 9th grade to 10th grade, from 12th grade to whatever's next. Those are the things we're focusing on. It's not driven by the test. Now again, we know that influences it. But we talk to, you know, as we do these team meetings, and you hear me talk about that some on these PD days, you know, the test is not driving our decision making. We trust our teachers that are in those classrooms. You know, sometimes I'm looking around the table and there's, you know, 80 to 100 years of experience looking back at me. Those are the experts at that particular content area. We want to know, I want their input. What are the key skills our students have to have when they leave that to go to the next grade or whatever's next? But that's what we focus on when you hear us talk about intervention and bear time and those things. We appreciate the work our teachers and principals are putting in on that. Doing a ton of work, doing good work with our kids. And we appreciate that. Anybody have any questions on any of that information?
I want to add something. Mr. Dalton goes above and beyond to make teachers be able to access this data easily. If you have any interest in that, schedule 20 minutes with him, 30 minutes with him. Let him show you the stuff he has built. He has built, not we've bought, he has built to allow teachers to easily, hey, where are my kids struggling? What's that mean? Okay, I click on that, that takes me to exactly what that means. I mean, there's no question, their time is not wasted looking at a standard, you know, flipping through a book or looking online to find a standard. He's already linked everything. So if you have any interest in that whatsoever, I would encourage you to take some time, make an appointment with him, come in, just look to see what he's done, because it's worth it. He makes their job way easier.
I hope it's helpful.
And he enjoys it. That's the other good thing.
Thank you. We'll go into our action items. First on the agenda is early retirement incentive.
So this is a policy we have to renew every year. So it's policy GCPB. It's just incentive to retirement, which needs to be renewed annually. I would recommend the district continue with this policy. It's an incentive for teachers to let us know that they're going to retire. It lets them announce their retirement early in the school year. It helps us obtain outstanding replacements as well. The same token, teachers are penalized with late resignations. So it's policy GCPB.
Okay. Have a motion to approve early retirement incentive policy GCPB. Michael makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Brandi seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next, the AVA R1 assessment. Mr. Dalton.
Every year when we first start back to school, sit down with building counselors and review our assessment plan. If you've looked through that document, that's got everything from what we just talked about, our MAP tests, our ESD assessments. It's got our vision and hearing screenings in there, our physical fitness assessments, CPR assessments. All of that information is contained in this document. A lot of that's just defining and describing what those are. You know, there's some references in here to our curriculum committees and evaluating curriculum. I mean, that process I just discussed. To me, I like to think that that's taking place every time we have those PD days and we have those PLC meetings with our common plan time. A lot of what we found here, it just helps us make sure we're organized as far as those timelines. If you look through there, there's a calendar from the beginning of the school year to the end, just mapping out when those assessments are taking place, or in the case of like ACT, when they're available, so we can plan ahead and let students know what those dates are and what that's going to look like. You know, we go through some things that are new this year. A lot of that, honestly, is pretty similar from year to year. Some things really that have always been in place that are going to be probably more emphasized. You hear us talk about the MSIP, the Missouri School Improvement Plan. A lot of emphasis on individual student plans. You see a reference in there to ICAP, Individualized Career and Academic Plan. That's something our counselors have done with students for years. We're just trying to get a little more organized, a little more structured with what that looks like. You'll see some reference in there to a plan of study. That's something at the state level, and a lot of times we think of our vocational programs, and it is a major focus for them. So what we talk about as a student, and they'll do those interest inventories for sure in middle school. You do some of that in elementary just as far as discussing things that are out there. You know, if we have a student say, hey, I want to be an electrical engineer, I'm just making up an example. These plans of study, what we intend for those to be, we can lay out for a student, hey, it's great, if that's what you're interested in, here's some courses you might want to take and what that sequence would look like. So really just a process for us to be organized, kind of outline, again, those assessments, those timelines, and then review any changes that we need to make. Anybody have any questions on that?
So in that, whenever you say they come up with a profession that they are interested in, is that, did you say, you may have said that and I missed it, is it the counselors that then have that information that hands that over to them, or is it their advisors? Because each high school student has an advisor.
That's correct. That's a good question. And I combine conversations. A lot of those inventories take place with the counselors starting at middle school. We've got a ton of work that takes place during berry time at the high school with those advisory teachers. We try to get those groups as small as you can during that bear time, and that's something that we'll focus on and review. And try to help students outline what that would look like. And we talk a lot about, I had a question, well, now, once a student says, hey, this is the path I'm interested in, can they change their mind? Absolutely. We talk about multiple entry and exit points. Hey, I've changed my mind. Will this happen to anybody else? I've changed my major multiple times. But, we're not asking 14, 15, 16-year-olds to pick the path and stay on it. Just want them to know what's out there.
And they work on that in their bear time, you said?
Yes.
That's the time they have?
You got some wind during the day?
Well, or kind of what that is, what's that bear time?
So when we talk about that bear time, it's just a built-in part of our day. 25 minutes principals every single day. You'll hear me say intervention time. But that's structured. To me, it's really interesting to go look. That looks different in middle school than it does at the high school, and it ought to. The time's the same. Those kids are in different places. We've got struggling students that need academic help. There's a place where they can go during that time and focus on that. We've got students that have excelling in everything. I may be doing some research on the career that's out there. At the high school level, for sure, in middle school, whenever they're doing those inventories, every student, wherever they're at, academically, they're going to have an opportunity to look at that plan and try to back that up. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Anything else?
Thank you. Need a motion, approval to accept the R1 assessment plan as Mr. Dillon. Kenny makes a motion, have a second. Deana seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next, professional development program review.
Apologize, it seems like I'm talking about it. PD plan, as you look through that document, a lot of that is guided by and governed by our district CSIP plan. So a lot of that doesn't change from year to year. So what I'm going to focus on are the changes we've made, focuses, different areas of focus as we go through with that committee. And what that is, maybe I need to start there. We have a committee of teachers, representatives from each building, that if a teacher wants to go to a professional development activity outside of the district, there's a process. They have some paperwork they fill out and submit that request to their building principal. So the principal looks at that, if that's something, hey, that'd be great, they sign off on it, and then it goes to the committee to review and vote on, and then ultimately approve or make suggestions for what that needs to look like. That's what that process is when we talk about the PD committee. Some changes that we've made, I think this was the second year for new teachers. We've traditionally done 1 day for new teachers, and we expanded that to 2 days. There's just so much information for teachers new to the district, much less those who are brand new to the profession, just to give them more time to visit and be at, try to get acclimated before everyone else is here on site. The other thing that last year was the first time we had done it this way, partly because of county changes we had to. This month we was careful to walk you through that. The other part, there's a pool of money that the district is obligated to, required to spend on professional development.
So that is by statute, it's 1% of the foundation formula dollars we've talked about. Unless funding for transportation is below a certain level. But then you have to go to the board and they have to pass a resolution not to spend that 1%. I've never brought that to you, don't plan on bringing that to you. I think it's important that we spend our 1% on teacher professional development.
So my experience as a building principal, you just knew you had district-wide, there was this pool of money to use for professional development. Well, what we did was, one, again, county kind of required that. As a committee, we go in and decide how we're going to split that up. And again, there are lots of discussions on what that looks like. It's not exactly a third, because you got more teachers in some buildings than others, more students anyway. But what that has led to, and this was the intention, each building is spending their share of that money. I know as a building principal, I'm afraid to sign off on this. I feel like we're spending too much. It was just hard to keep track of that, to to me, that streamlines that process for the building principal. This is middle school money, this is elementary money, this is high school's share of that. But that did, as we reviewed that, we felt like that money got used appropriately, I was going to say taken advantage of it, used equitably.
You have to spend it.
Yeah. No,
You have to carry it over and account for it.
I feel like
We want to use it wisely.
I feel like more teachers got to take advantage of those opportunities and utilize that. Just going to do exactly what was meant at the building. Any questions on that PD plan?
Thank you.
Need a motion and vote to approve the Able Professional Development Program review. Do I have a motion? Brandi makes the motion. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next on the agenda, Mr. Benson is requested to address the board in regarding transportation.
Thank you. Appreciate your time again. We also appreciate your time last Wednesday night. It's coming out. While we was here, however, Ms. Parsick asked a number of times, what do you want? We came here with the idea that from the June 20th meeting, the board intended to follow the transpire report recommendation. Of course, we know it was errored. And we simply wanted the opportunity to share our thoughts on this transpire report. We appreciate that time. But in light of the fact that she has asked us for what we want, we did not have a proposal for such because we was expecting all the transpire report. Didn't happen, or it hasn't happened, whatever didn't seem to be what we went on. So, and then in light of the fact that she'd like to have our request, we do have a paragraph here concerning the bus mileage measurement that's been deviated some in the last few years, been the pattern for 39 years I've been driving a bus. This has been the pattern, but it's been deviated some. Been deviated from some in some cases. Not in my case in particular, but in other cases. So I'll share with you, I might just show each one of you what we have. Okay. It's set right here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'd like to get back on track with this. It's been that way for 39 years that I've been operating a bus, or this is the 39th year. All contracted buses would be run annually before the school year starts by administration and owners or representative. All mileage will be agreed upon and signed by both parties. Mileage will be based upon the measured mileage contained at all stops, double backs, erect, back to school. The total mileage for dirt and paved will then be doubled to get the paid mileage for both. The paid mileage will remain in effect for the school year unless the change is agreed upon by administration and owner during the school year. Both parties must sign off on date for the route changing. Actually, this means that if someone moves away out of the district, they're not there, and you subtract that mileage off and measure it. If somebody moves in on a route, you go measure that mileage and add it on. That's been the practice for untold years, but it's been deviated some in the last few years. We'd also like to say that even though the transpire report recommended a raise of 9.25 on base, dirt, and paved, we are still making our original request, a raise of 6% on base, dirt, and paved. This would raise the rates to $1.99 on paved, $2.81 on dirt, $1,297.09 on the base. That's our request. Thank you.
Thank you.
make a motion to extend the raises to what they're requesting. That's what they originally requested back in June, and it's less than the transfer report says they should get. It's basically a compromise.
I second it.
Motion to extend raises to 6%, is that what your motion is?
Yeah, what they've got right here, which would be the 6%. I didn't look at the figures myself, but that's why you present.
So, motion to extend the raise to 6% to transportation. Dan makes a motion, Amy, you said you second. Do we have any discussion?
I have a question. Is that on top of the 3% they just received?
The way I interpret it is the 3% plus another 3, which is a total of 6. How should I say that?
I'm looking for just a second.
If we
I've got a number.
The 6% is what they originally asked for in June.
We gave them 3.
We gave them 3.
And this would be basically approximately 3 more percent.
What we voted on was a 4.62 on paved and dirt road mileage, and which equals to a 3% overall. And so this proposal is for
another 3.
The additional 3.
Right.
On all mileage and base. And that's with no other stipulations attached. No other negotiation on.
That's what they originally asked for in June.
So
I would concur that's what they've done.
You would concur what?
That's the math. It's 6% total across the board. Yeah. So it would be what the recommendation was in June of 3. That was 4.25 equal to 3, and another 3% on top of that. So I would concur that's appropriate of what they're at. I mean, that's how the math figures.
I still wonder, personally, I understand this was the original request for a 6% raise. And are we doing away with all the transport information then because we've agreed it's flawed?
I don't agree that the transport report is flawed anywhere except in the calculations that they did to figure their 9.25%. I mean, the report's basically, you could look at a lot of different things, but for the most part, it's a reasonable report. The 9.25% was never correct because the report, every report said 1850. And they've never put the numbers in the report that really should be there. What's in the transport report now on dirt and highway, if you look that way, it says 9.25, which is 6%. Basically what they're asking for. They're just asking to increase the base, dirt and pave, so you're equal 6%.
Along with the motion, I guess we can make it.
Yeah, you can choose to.
Would you copy from the first day of school going forward now?
Paychecks have been cut. I mean, I'm handing them out in the morning. I just want you to know that.
As far as I'm concerned, from my part, we can start now.
If it was going to go back, I needed a retroactive motion. Yes.
What are you asking, Larry? Are you asking it to go from this point forward to 6%, or do you want it retroactive from the beginning of the school year?
No, we realize that what the board has already voted on and has passed, that we're not contesting that. You asked for it.
But you want it to
right.
start now?
Right, whatever you do from this point.
If you're asking for the 3% to start from this point on, not to go retro.
Start tomorrow morning.
Yes. Okay.
The way that.
That's what they're asking. They're asking if you wanted to go retro or if you wanted to start from this point on, tomorrow morning. Okay.
So we do, just trying to understand, so you do base some of this on the transport report?
Sure.
And the other half of the raise was on, if we use some of this transport report, was contingent on some other things in the contracts. You know, the first 3% or 4.62 on the paved and dirt was just no stipulations, that's just the raise. And that's what we approved. And then the other 3% or 4.62 on the mileage, however we want to make this work out, was contingent on some other things like highway patrol inspections and the perpetuity clause within the contract and paying for some of the, it was GPSs and dispatchers, correct?
If you get a, doesn't matter if it's a 1% or a 3% or a 6%, and then you take what you say now you've got to pay me for this and this and this. You take away 1 or 2 or 3%, so you really don't get them right.
I understand. I do understand that. I'm not arguing that. Where we're at, and I know you didn't want to bring teachers into this. Where I go back to this is, I think, my opinion, and I know we disagree, is you kind of have to. I guess I don't understand is the recommended raise of 6% being so much higher than what we're going to give teachers and other staff this year.
We haven't done it right.
But the teachers have gotten raises the past years when the bus drivers have not. Think on that too. The bus drivers have gone, how many, 2 years without raises? In the 2 years?
There was 1 year for sure.
Right.
4 years that I can verify.
But in 4 years, for sure 2 they missed.
I just don't know if I know about that math, because I've been on the last 3 years that we've got, you just said 2% in 4 years, we just said we gave them 3%.
I got the information from Dr. Dow, so.
But we just talked about it 3%.
So, I wasn't prepared to have this discussion, but I can have it. In order for, I have it broken out a little bit different. I had a scenario that would give the transportation contractor the exact same raise as teachers have gotten. The only thing I can deal with is the 17 and 18 school year when I started in this gig. Or since the new contract, because the new contract came in July of 16. So that would catch them up. That would be even. That is number 5. So it's north of 6%, but there was nothing on the base. So it's going to be close.
The 7.13.
Correct, but there's nothing on the base.
Right.
So I'm trying to extrapolate that number back out.
So that would catch them up based on what the teachers have.
That is the scenario I gave to you. That is correct. But I do not have that. The timeline that I gave you when I went back to 1995. I don't have that with me.
So, I guess, was your statement accurate or not? It doesn't seem accurate to me to say 2% in the last 4 years when we just did 3%.
Well,
Are you not including this
counting
year?
the 3, what we've done this year?
Okay. Was 15, 16 when all the contracts were renegotiated?
July of 16, Larry, correct?
Was that when
July of 16 is when you started under the new contract. Because I came in October of 16 and you were already underneath it. It was 15, 16 school year. You were already under the new contract when I got
I
here.
think part of that is whenever it was all renegotiated, I think.
The new contract is 67.
Yeah. That's the way I understand that, yes. I came in October of 16 and the new contract was already in place.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Does anyone else have any comments or questions before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? Two in favor, those against? The 5 against. Motion fails. Next on the agenda is the graduation date for the next school year. Dr. Nash.
Each year, I send out a survey to both parents and students regarding which day they would like to have graduation. And the majority voted on a Friday for the graduation day this year. So I would like to recommend Friday, May the 15th at 7 o'clock p.m. at Sylvia Field for graduation.
Thank you. So I have a motion to accept the graduation date as May 15th. Michael makes the motion. I have a second. Mark seconds. All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next is policy updates.
So you had, I gave you several policy updates, 2019B, gave those to you in August for your review. All of these are critical, so they are changes based on state law. So in order to be up to date with state law, except for one, and it's really not a policy, it's a practice, and I just want to update you on that, and I would, let's vote on 2019B first, and then I'll go to the next thing. Any questions about any of those policies? They're all, like I said, due to changes in state law.
So you just want to do 2019B?
Yeah, and then I'll talk about that next.
Do I have a motion to accept MSBA 2019B policy updates? Yeah, I'll make it. Michael makes a motion. I have a second. Yeah. Kenny seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries 7-0.
Okay. So we have a practice in a non-certified position that we have a top pay for a non-certified position, whatever that may be. And this is actually was in policy, and at some point it got removed, and it's just been practice. But when a person starts in the district, they start $3 behind the top pay, and every 520 hours, they get a 75-cent raise. It takes a little over a year to get, with 520 hours, to get to top pay, which is fine, and 75 going into 3 seems fine. Seems 4 times, you're good. But what happens is, usually, there is an, if we give a percentage raise to non-certified staff, that may be a few pennies, then it takes a fifth 520 hours to get those extra pennies that top pay has gone up to. Say if they were at $16.50 this year and it went to $16.55 next year, they don't get that extra 5 cents until they go to the fifth 520 hours. My request is that we move that We keep the policy same except for on the fourth 520-hour raise, they make up the rest up to that top pay. Because that top pay moves. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I mean, it's usually 2, 3, 4 cents. But they never get there in the 4 cycles. Now, if we don't give a raise that year and everybody's stagnant, they get there. And so it would not make a difference for that either.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to, for non-certified employees on the 4th evaluation cycle, that we allow them to reach top pay with a positive evaluation.
Do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Kenny made the motion, have a second. Michael seconds, any discussion? All those in favor? Carry 7.
Nope, that's it, sir.
That concludes our agenda items for tonight. Our next regular board meeting will be October 17th at 6:30 in this room. Have a motion to adjourn. Mark makes the motion, have a second. Brandi seconds, all in favor? Carries 7. Thank you.
That's it.
I'm getting out. Well, you didn't have to. That's right, she didn't. Keith didn't call me when you were just.
Did Keith already work these cows? Clear good. Tonight, he said, "There's a couple of weeks I'll work them, but they'll give me a call."
Do you know who worked cows?
You did? He made you?
It was 100 degrees up there, and we worked cows. He and I did it. We're by ourselves for hours. And then I got to the point where we were both to the point where we can't keep doing this. We're going to pass out. It was so hot. So we called Burley and Burley. But there was a reason why.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Keith had to have them done before. He had a narrow band, and I would leave him as far as that.
All right. Didn't know that.
Yeah. You went in for surgery. And had all the
Somewhat.
complications. He was just pretty much staying in St. Louis.
It's flawed. It's definitely flawed now.
He's retired.
I think we just.
I don't remember the exact I called him that Saturday night. I think he woke up that Sunday morning and he said, I've got to work the cows. So we just went to work the cows.
I would help him if you had my work.
Yeah, and I don't know why but he was not. Oh gosh, I was awful. And we couldn't get the hot shot to work, so, well, I used a lot if I could had it because our cows are so docile.
They don't want to go up.
They don't want to go up the chutes. We were out there pounding on them.
That's her job. Kicking pounds and
This is my.
Well, I said too bad choice. So, you know the scenario. I had my head which was not big. She didn't even take you out for dinner. We were so tired. We were so
come home and crash.
Yeah, he went through it. It's been kind of a hard.
I didn't know that.
And then after Junior died, Betty, well, you have to understand, Betty, she was 14. And she was a baby.
That seems like we all fairly, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I feel all compensated. Her life don't consist of him all her time.
So anyway, after he passed, he's been first week.
I don't understand why we're still fighting.
The others stay, but they all work, he was retired. So it's been part of the process.
Well, I did not know that. I'd have been surprised if I'd have known it.
It all, and it was so, he went in for surgery. You're supposed to be in surgery. You guys done?
Yeah, probably so.
It's a larger raise than everybody else, and I thought, that's kind of a
So you guys tell Keith I said, don't give him my condolences for about his death.
Yeah, I understand. But what I'm saying is, if the 4.62
I told him I was sorry.
does it make a difference?
You got thrown under the bus again.
Okay, but I'm saying,
Don't just not going to judge nothing, they don't want to catch us.
guess what we,
Today, and they won't.
this week, last week.
That's it. If they would sit down and say, this is why we're not doing it, they won't tell you nothing. And you know what? We're behind. We're not asking them for a whole bunch just to catch us up. But
I'm not trying to replace you.
no comparison. And besides, you do research. We've got lots. She's done unbelievable researches on schools, the equivalent for this size of their busing costs now is considerably much more than what this is. They're getting the marks from now. But a lot of my sons here about 4 years ago, they thought we were gone and we didn't leave. We got a lawyer and they didn't want to report it. There's a bunch of people here that is pulling the strings on some school board because they thought they lost. So we didn't want nothing. We just wanted to keep our jobs and do our jobs. It's kind of sad.
That's what the figure that was presented to.
Well, just like this coming year will be 20 years. I drove 71, 72, and 73. I come back from Vietnam and Subway 74. And then I bought in 02. Coming year will be 20 years.
One day for each would have to be free trial.
That's what you've sacrificed and how you perform.
But I do understand this contract for service. That's sad.
Well, I think that day Tyler was at the house all by herself. Do you remember that? Tyler, granddaughter?
Oh, yeah.
And she was there at the house all by herself. You knew that her mama wasn't home yet.
Well, that's why I took care of it.
You took care of her, yeah.
You know, and that's, hey, you know what? And if you get someone else to say like this, they won't do it. And that's not the only one I've done that way.
And you're not
No, you know what? You know the families. Maybe everyone that bought his ticket. I don't know his older sister wasn't on.
I don't really care
half a mile from the house.
Dirt, base, all this stuff. I'd rather just do it.
So I jumped on the phone and got a hold of
So that's why I think we broke this down.
And, oh, I forgot, she's not on. I said, I am not letting you off the break. I said, and I had her to talk to him. I said, you just stay away and I'll be there in a little bit. He's fine then. But then he talked to Mama. And then I met her here in town later. He rode the whole trip with me and me and him stopped at McDonald's, got an ice cream cone, and then met Mama.
That's right.
But, that's,